This is a picture of Captain Smoker I drew, brothers and sisters, and thought it was fitting to show to you, since, of course, he's arrived in Alabasta, and we're balls deep in old Captain Smoker and Tashigi and the Marines now. If you like this and more, remember to follow me.
One Piece, Chapter 158, Landing in Alabasta.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the tantalizing and just awesome tale of One Piece. Our last chapter saw us with, of course, we now know that Smoker and Tashigi and of course the Navy is in is actually in Nanohana, city in Alabasta, and looking for Luffy. We also know that Ace is there, and had found out at the end of last chapter that Ace is in fact Luffy's brother. So, very, very cool stuff. That's where things left off. And things kind of pick up in a similar fashion. If you remember in the last chapter, as soon as they landed, Luffy was starving, and he was just like, food, 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 and he just took off like a cookie monster. And so things start off in this one, and of course the rest of the Straw Hats are sitting around like, well, where the hell is Luffy? How are we going to find him in a city this size? And Sanji says, listen, just, find the loudest place and he'll probably be there. And Vivi and Nami, make mention of, Nami especially says, he's got to stop doing this type of stuff. He's got to remember that he has a price on his head. They're kind of here on a bit of a covert operation, and Luffy's just, and then anyway, Zoro says, listen, whatever, let's get our stuff done. Let's get something to eat, figure out what we got to do, and let's not worry about Luffy, right? So then we go and we get, the next portion of the chapter is actually very, very fun and funny. Smoker had, at the end of last chapter, approached and saw Ace sitting at the restaurant eating, and saw him and noticed, who he was by the tattoo that was on his back. So he approaches him, of course, and they're kind of talking, and, he goes, Smoker says, hey, listen, I'm here on business for another pirate anyway, but more or less it starts out with Ace going, okay, so what now? And then Smoker says, well, you give yourself up. And Ace says, that's not going to happen. So then he goes, and Smoker says, listen, I'm here on business for another pirate anyway, and I don't have time to deal with this right now. And he says, oh, okay, well, just let me go then. And Smoker says, that's not going to happen. So they're kind of, in this Mexican standoff, so to speak, and, it's the type of thing where neither one's going to give. But Ace even says, he's like, come on, man, can't we even just try to get along over here? While this is all happening and they're having their little conversation, Luffy has smelled food, and he's just like, food, 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 and he's just running towards this restaurant, right? He goes and gets within maybe 100 feet of it, and he stretches his arms out, right? And, just go, stretches his arms out to grab the actual, doors of the restaurant or what have you, something near it, and rockets himself in. And as he comes in and just comes flying in, just ass first, ass backwards or whatever, he nails Smoker into Ace, and they go flying through like 4 walls and buildings on the way out, I can't wait to see this type of stuff in the anime, because the way it was portrayed is just hilarious, So all of a sudden, Ace gets up, and it's so funny because he gets up and he's all like bloodied and just messed up because he went through these 4 walls, and he's just like, oh, and tips his hat to this couple that's sitting there, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your meal over there, So then he goes, and as he's walking back through and stuff, and Luffy has come up to the counter. Of course, he's starving, and he's talking to the proprietor, the barkeep, what have you, and he's just like, oh, I need some food, So he's just I'm just eating stuff in his face, right? And then Smoker goes and lights his cigars again, because apparently smoking one is not good enough. He has 2, and he comes up and he's just like, oh, so you decided to come here, huh, Straw Hat? And he's gonna go and he's obviously confronting with Luffy over there, and Luffy's just kind of like, and he's trying to talk with him in his mouth, with food in his mouth, not with him in his mouth, and that would be kind of weird. And he's trying to say all these things, and it's funny because he says like a blah, 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 and then it translates it into like, but I didn't know you were. So anyway, Luffy recognizes, of course, that it's Captain Smoker, and he takes off. He winds up running with a mouthful of food. And he does this before Ace can actually get back, and then Ace is like on his way back, and he sees Luffy running, and he's like, hey, Luffy, what? And because he's trying to catch him, of course, right? and talk with him for whatever his business is. So then we get Luffy comes bursting out of there, and Smoker is in hot pursuit. Luffy knows that because of his smoke powers, he can't damage him, he can't hurt him. There's nothing that he particularly can do that he's aware of. So he's like, better to run, right? So he takes off. Smoker sees Tashigi, and Tashigi's like, oh, what do you need, sir? Do you need a towel? It's awfully hot here. And he's like, no, the straw hat, come on, So he tells her to get all the men together, search every corner of the city, and he's hot on Luffy's trail. And then Ace, we can presume, is trailing behind somewhere after that. We then go in the next portion of the chapter before everything meets up with the Straw Hats and Luffy and whatnot. We go over and we see a little bit of fan service, I guess you would call it, because it's Nami and it's Vivi with their like 8-inch waists and their like gigantic busts, in these a dancer, like not exotic dancer, but like dancer. Trying to think of. Like dancers that you would have in like India and Egypt and stuff like that. Belly dancers. That's the word I was searching for. Sorry about that. And they're all dressed up and looking good. And Sanji apparently was tasked with picking out clothes for them, for their undercover outfits or disguises. And they're even like, you know what? Yeah, we look hot in these, but we shouldn't have let Sanji pick out the clothes. We're not exactly going to be blending in as dancers, right? And Sanji's like, oh, of course you are. There's dancers. First of all, dancers are everywhere. It's a completely honest, whatever profession, this and that. He goes, and the thing is nobody will ever suspect that you're the princess of Alabasta dressed like that, And they're like, yeah, but we're going to be trekking across the desert and this and that, So it just, again, it's kind of a funny exchange. You leave Sanji to go and dress him up. And he's, of course, swooning over him. And he's like, oh, and if you get tired in the desert, I can carry you, And then we go and we see the other Straw Hats sitting around, and boy, what a motley crew they look like. And Sanji goes and he's like, but you guys all look like thieves, right? And they do. They look like thieves out of like Aladdin or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, right? And they're like, yeah, what do you think you look like? There's also a quick exchange too. Apparently, Chopper, being the reindeer that he is, his nose is super sensitive, and he's like itching it, and it itches like crazy. And Vivi says, I don't know if this is going to play a significant role in anything, but Vivi says, well, this city is known for all these perfumes and blah blah blah. So again, don't know if that's going to come into play at any point, or if it's just kind of like, hey, he's an animal and he's got a nose like a bloodhound and he's sensitive to things. I don't know. But anyway, right as that happens, and they were like, okay, we've got everything together for our trek across the desert, now we just need to, basically now we need to find Luffy is kind of what they're going towards. And then all of a sudden, Luffy appears. Well, first the Navy appears. They see some Marines, and Zoro's kind of trying to hold, Vivi or Nami down a little bit, like hide. And then they go and they see Luffy just tearing ass, right? And Luffy's just like, oh, hey guys, hey, there you are. And they're like, what the hell? And they see that he's being chased by Smoker and by the Marines, and they're like, don't lead him to us, you idiot, And then they're like, oh, the rest of the Straw Hat crew is there, So Smoker goes and starts to do a move, one of his moves, White Snake or Sun Flare or one of these sort of things on Luffy, to grab him. You're not going to get away from me this time, right? And then all of a sudden, a really cool page that I'm actually working on, and probably by the time this is up, I'll have it at the beginning of this review or the next one, a cool picture of Ace where he's just like, and then we see what his power is, right? He goes and counters that smoke, whatever, Sun Flare smoke deal with fire and just completely, stops it. It's just kind of like, it's going, and boom, he stops it right there. And he goes and he says, listen, he goes, you may be able to use smoke or be made of smoke, but I'm fire. So right now you better let this go because we're too evenly matched for anybody to really come out on top with this one. And that's how the chapter ends. It's great. And then it's cool because Luffy goes in the last panel, last couple of panels, goes and looks over and he's just like, Ace? And then Ace looks at him and he's just like, yeah, you'll never change, huh, Luffy? So really, really cool. All in all, a very fun chapter. And like I said, action-packed and funny as well. So very, very cool. And then also they had made mention as well, Vivi had, about how they were going to be making their trek across the desert. They have to stop the rebellion, obviously, before the kingdom tears itself apart and there's any more bloodshed. So they have to go and find the leader of the rebels. And they found that he is in Yuba, hiding in Yuba, wherever that is. I don't know if it's a town, a province, an area, but we will find out soon enough. So my chapter question is, and some of you have been kind enough to explain about the 3 different types of devil fruits before to me, and I know that I've read over them and now things are starting to click more, but let's have for the chapter question be, as far as Smoker's power and Ace's powers, what do you think? Which one do you think is better? Do you think it's better to have the power of smoke? I mean, obviously you can grab people, encapsulate them, all these other things, or the power of fire? Now, we haven't really seen exactly what Ace can do with it yet, but I can only assume, some of the things that can be done with it. So you, as the viewers, of course, I would like to know what your thoughts are on which power you think is better or cooler, more useful. You choose, you decide. Remember to leave your comments down below, brothers and sisters. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button, if you should think that I deserve it. And, of course, subscribe if you have not done so already. We will look forward to catching you, hopefully every one of you, in the next one, Nation.
As always, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for watching the videos, commenting, sharing, liking, subscribing, and really just being a part of the Nerd Nation. Here's a little throwback picture I did quite some time ago during the Baratier arc of Gin.